The context of the Byzantine Empire before 1071 forms the backdrop for understanding the significance of the Battle of Manzikert and its aftermath, the decline of Byzantine power in the East. The Byzantine Empire, once Rome's proud successor, was the predominant Christian power in the Eastern Mediterranean. By the 11th century, it boasted a complex administration and a sophisticated military system designed to defend vast territories stretching across the Balkans, Anatolia, and into the Middle East. Economically robust, its capital, Constantinople, was a thriving hub of trade and culture. However, this apparent strength masked underlying vulnerabilities. The Byzantine military, though formidable, was overstretched and relied heavily on a mix of local levies and mercenaries. This system was jeopardized by successive internal conflicts, which drained resources and diverted focus from external threats. Politically, the empire was rife with internal strife and power struggles, often resulting in short-lived and ineffective leadership. The growing influence and autonomy of Eastern generals, like Isaac I Komnenos, highlighted a decentralized power structure that weakened overall cohesion. The significance of this context lies in setting the stage for the events at Manzikert. The empire's internal disarray compounded its vulnerability to external forces, notably the Seljuk Turks, who were increasingly pressuring Byzantine frontiers. The empire's failure to consolidate its eastern territories and manage these border pressures effectively led to a precarious geopolitical position. For instance, Emperor Romanos IV Diogenes' attempts to stabilize the eastern frontier highlight typical Byzantine responses to the region's challenges. His military campaigns in Anatolia aimed to halt Seljuk incursions but were undermined by internal opposition, illustrating the critical intersection of politics and military strategy. On a socio-economic level, the Byzantine reliance on Anatolia for grain production and military recruitment meant the region's loss would severely cripple the empire's capacity to sustain prolonged military engagement, leading to wider economic ramifications. Opinions diverge regarding whether the Byzantine Empire could have avoided its fate at Manzikert. Some historians argue that more unified leadership might have mitigated the military disaster, while others suggest that structural issues, such as regional autonomy and resource inadequacies, rendered decline inevitable. These complexities underscore that the pre-1071 context was not merely a backdrop, but an active participant influencing the empire's fate. The empire's socio-political dynamics and strategic missteps resonate throughout Byzantine, directly affecting its response mechanisms to external threats and ultimately shaping the trajectory of its historical and geopolitical narrative following Manzikert. The prelude to the Battle of Manzikert in 1071 encompasses the intricate political and military maneuvers that paved the way for one of history's pivotal confrontations. This phase involves understanding the Byzantine Empire's strategic attempts to retain control over its eastern frontiers amid rising threats from the Seljuk Turks. In this period, the Byzantine Empire was grappling with internal strife and political instability, which weakened its military capabilities. The empire faced challenges in governance, with frequent power struggles and a lack of coherent leadership, exemplified by Emperor Romanos IV Diogenes' contested ascension to the throne. The significance of this prelude lies in its critical role in setting the stage for the empire's eventual decline in the East. The Byzantine Empire had been a dominant power for centuries, but the shifting dynamics and buildup of forces during this period marked the unraveling of their territorial supremacy. The Seljuks, under the leadership of Alp Arslan, capitalized on Byzantine weakness, turning their eyes toward expanding their influence into Anatolia, a crucial region for Byzantine stability. Specific examples illustrate these dynamics. Romanos IV's misleading peace treaty with Alp Arslan, perceived as an attempt to buy time and consolidate military strength, failed to address the underlying threat. Additionally, the empire's reliance on often unreliable mercenary forces rather than a loyal standing army contributed to their vulnerability at Manzikert. The politically fragmented Byzantine state, marked by internal dissent and wavering loyalties, could not mount an effective defense against the cohesive Seljuk campaign. Opinions often highlight Romanos IV's ambition and military reforms as necessary but ultimately ineffective against the strategic prowess and unity of the Seljuk forces. Critics argue that the emperor's ambition outpaced his ability to unify the Byzantine political factions and adequately prepare for the looming Turkish threat. Challenges and controversies include debates on whether Romanos could have pursued stronger alliances or more effective diplomatic measures to mitigate the Seljuk threat. There is also contention regarding the influence of internal treachery, as elements within the Byzantine military were allegedly complicit in undermining Romanos's authority. This prelude influences other aspects of the main topic by setting the scene for the Byzantine army's defeat at Manzikert, which precipitated a long-term decline in the empire's influence in Asia Minor. The loss of Anatolian territories following the battle had far-reaching consequences for local and regional power structures, exacerbating the empire's struggles against external threats and reducing its capacity to recover from subsequent invasions. The Battle of Manzikert in 1071 was a pivotal moment in the decline of Byzantine power in the east. This battle occurred in what is now eastern Turkey, where the Byzantine Empire, led by Emperor Romanos IV Diogenes, clashed with the Seljuk Turks under the command of Sultan Alp Arslan. The dynamics of the battle were marked by a series of tactical missteps by the Byzantine forces, including the fragmentation of their army and poor communication among commanders, which were exacerbated by internal court intrigues and betrayal by some of Romanos's supposed allies. The Seljuks, on the other hand, used their superior knowledge of the terrain and effective military strategies like feigned retreats to outmaneuver the larger Byzantine force. The significance of this battle lies in its catastrophic impact on Byzantine influence in the east. The decisive defeat not only resulted in Emperor Romanos IV being captured, but also opened Anatolia to gradual and extensive Seljuk settlement. This shift marked the beginning of the end for Byzantine control in this region, leading to a weakened Byzantine state that struggled to fend off future incursions and maintain its former territories. The loss at Manzikert initiated a chain of events that directly contributed to the eventual calls for assistance from the West, setting the stage for the First Crusade. Real-world examples that underline this dynamic include the conditions leading to the eventual rise of Turkish dominion over Anatolia. Another example is the immense pressure placed on the Byzantine Empire, which required substantial resources and military alliances to counteract the loss, influencing their political relations with Western Europe. Historians have long debated the reasons for the Byzantine defeat at Manzikert. Some argue that Romanos's leadership was fatally flawed due to his reliance on problematic subordinates, while others point to the betrayal by Byzantine nobles, such as General Andronikos Doukas, who undermined Romanos from within. There are also arguments that suggest the battle might not have been as immediately disastrous if it weren't for the ensuing political instability and civil wars within the empire. Controversies regarding the battle's impact persist, as some suggest that the Byzantine Empire could have potentially reclaimed its strength with different internal strategies, but was hampered by constant factionalism. In essence, the Battle of Manzikert serves as a critical junction in Byzantine history, where mismanagement and external pressures combined to accelerate the empire's decline, fundamentally altering its geopolitical landscape. The immediate consequences for the Byzantine Empire following the Battle of Manzikert in 1071 were profound and marked a pivotal turning point in the empire's history. This concept refers to the direct repercussions that the Byzantine Empire faced shortly after their defeat to the Seljuk Turks, which precipitated a rapid decline in Byzantine influence and territory in the east. The significance of this topic lies in how this event marked the beginning of the end for Byzantine dominance in Anatolia. The empire, historically a dominant force in the region, found its eastern defenses shattered, leading to a loss of critical territories that served as economic and military heartlands. This immediately compromised Byzantine frontiers and exposed the empire to further invasions and internal strife. One real-world example illustrating these consequences was the capture and subsequent inability to reclaim significant portions of Anatolia, which fell under Turkish control rapidly after the battle. These lands were not only resource-rich, but also served as vital buffers against Eastern invaders, and their loss weakened Byzantine military and economic foundations. Another example was the shift in power dynamics within the empire itself. The defeat at Manzikert exacerbated existing political instability within Byzantium, fueling usurpations and civil wars. This internal discord was perhaps best exemplified by the fact that Emperor Romanos IV Diogenes, who led the forces at Manzikert, was quickly deposed and blinded upon his return. Opinions supporting the catastrophic impact of these events often highlight how the immediate aftermath of Manzikert crippled Byzantine military morale and effectively ended its status as a Mediterranean superpower. Many historians argue that this defeat precipitated a chain reaction that led to the eventual collapse of the Byzantine Empire, underscoring its critical importance. However, this narrative is not without challenges or alternative viewpoints. Some scholars suggest that the defeat was not solely responsible for Byzantine decline, pointing to longer-term structural issues such as administrative corruption and fiscal instability that had already been eroding the empire from within. The immediate consequences of the Battle of Manzikert had cascading effects on other aspects of Byzantine history. The loss of Anatolia disrupted the established social and economic order, contributing to shifts in Byzantine culture and population distribution. Furthermore, this military weakening made Byzantium increasingly reliant on mercenary forces and triggered a series of political alliances and enmities that defined its diplomacy for decades to come. Ultimately, these immediate consequences of Manzikert laid the groundwork for the empire's eventual downfall.